Hi, my name is Father Dan Cambra. I'm a Marian of the Immaculate Conception, the religious community that operates the National Shrine of Divine Mercy here in Stockbridge, Massachusetts. And today I'd like to speak to you about St. Rita of Cascia. St. Rita of Cascia was born in 1381, and as a young woman she was married off, and her husband was not exactly the model of kindness. He was a loud, vulgar, sometimes even physically abusive husband. And what's worse, her husband was involved in a feud, an ongoing vendetta between two families in their town. Ultimately, through her prayers and sacrifices, she saw her husband move from an angry, belligerent man to being a man of much more peaceable demeanor. She bore him 2 sons. And in his peaceable demeanor, as he was open to setting aside the vendetta, he was tricked by his own adversaries and was scandalously murdered. Shortly after his burial, his brother attempted to coerce St. Rita's 2 sons into taking up the vendetta. She prayed, and she prayed long and hard that they would restrain themselves. Ultimately, they did die, and unfortunately, they died as victims. But fortunately, they did not take up the vendetta. Rita, for her part, at this point in her life, desired to enter a convent and to live out her years in religious life. But this was not an easy thing to do in this town that was torn by a vendetta. And so she had to travel some distance to find a place that would receive her. When finally she was received into a convent, it was a convent that followed the Augustinian rule of the time for women. And she very gladly took upon herself the chores and the tasks that were assigned to her. One unique one was that she was given a dead stick, and she was told to place it in the ground and to water it every day, which she did not for just 1 year, but for several years, before finally it took root and grew, and it became a vine. And that vine eventually produced grapes. And the grapes from that particular vine to this very day are still used to produce wine for the Holy Father. Another one of the stories about St. Rita is that when she was born, an odd occurrence of white bees were seen coming in and out of her mouth and not harming the child at all. This was taken to be a sign that her words would always be kind and sweet and peaceable, and that she herself would be industrious like a bee. And she certainly was. And she certainly was someone who always helped others to find peace in their hearts and in their lives. When she was 60, she received an extraordinary grace. A thorn from Christ's crown was lodged in the center of her forehead and became visible for the last 15 years of her life. Devotees of St. Rita sometimes relate that when they ask her to relieve them of one difficulty, they ultimately receive a different difficulty, so to speak, a sharing in her thorn, so to speak, a sharing in the cross and the suffering of Christ. And while it is a holy and pious thing to turn to Saint Rita, not only as one who mediates the gospel message to us, but as one who demonstrates the infinite love and compassion that each of us should have for Christ in his sufferings. So it is that Saint Rita gives us a good example of a peaceable wife, of a loving mother, of a good religious, of a Christian called to holiness. May God bless you.